Hey guys, how's it going? So today we're talking about the Atoll IN30. And so this unit was provided to us by Phono Audio, so make sure to check their website in the description below. Also, they have a 10% discount code to my viewers, so until the end of this month, so make sure to check them out. So without further ado, let's talk about the Atoll IN30. So I was talking about the Atoll IN30 in my Klipsch RP600m review, and I was talking about how of a great match it was. And so I'll get into the sound characteristics of this amplifier further down in this video, but let's talk about the build quality and its features first. So looking at this unit is a very minimalistic unit, and to really understand the design behind this amplifier, integrated amplifier, we have to look at the history. And we don't like history lessons, but it must be done. So the Atoll was started by two brothers in the 1970s, and their really design goal was to make really high-end sounding, really good sounding amplifiers, integrated amplifiers, with a budget in mind. So they were really going for the budget-friendly option. And they've done a really good job, and over the years they certainly know what they're doing, and it seems like they packed a lot of things into this unit. Even though it's small and looks very minimalistic, it has a lot of features that may be beneficial to you. Now, in terms of the whole design and the build quality, there's not much to be talked about. It is a black gloss finish and is a stainless steel chassis. Very sturdy. There's really not much complaints to go around with the design. It has a high wife approval factor, to say the least. It's kind of there and it kind of disappears. And I kind of like that about this amplifier. It kind of disappears when you're playing music. So I kind of like it when components kind of disappear. Now, with that being said, the internal design is what is really impressive and what I would like to emphasize. So this, for a small unit, priced around 500 USD, is quite impressive in the fact that it has a big capacitance number. It has a 20,000 microfarad capacitance. And why is capacitance important, you may ask? And it is important because it is the ability to storage electrical charge. So by being able to do so, it's able to deliver power when it's required. And for a small unit like this, it was quite impressive that it had such a large capacitance. Now, it uses toroidal transformers, and there's many benefits in using a toroidal transformer, but to go over it briefly, it has lower noise floor and less interference, and overall more efficient. So that was the internal features. Now, looking at the external side of things, it gets quite interesting, and this unit is kind of fail-proof, meaning you can't really go wrong with this unit, and down the line, if you decide to upgrade, then you can without getting rid of this unit. So let me get into what I'm talking about. So it has inputs and outputs like any other unit, so you can use this as a preamplifier because it has pre-outs. It has an output. So if you decide to get a separate amplifier down the line, you can use this just as a preamplifier. Now, what about the reverse? What if you want to use this as just an amplifier and get a separate preamplifier that sounds better to you, maybe a tube design? Well, you can, and that is a very simple way of doing it. If you see here, there's a tape/bypass section. And if you choose the bypass option, basically what you're doing is you're making this into just an amplifier with a fixed gain. So you can use a separate preamplifier and use this just as an amplifier. So I thought that was pretty unique. So either way, you get a new preamplifier or you get a new amplifier, you can still integrate this into your system without getting rid of it. So from choosing the inputs to increasing and decreasing the volume, it is all just a press of a button. And also, the great thing about this unit is that when you increase, right, it's kind of cool. You see the LEDs going up instead of numbers. So I thought that was pretty cool. Now, if you look at the remote is also fail-proof. So down here is actually just this section. Here is the controls for this unit. The other controls are really there for their streamers, their CD players, and their other products. So you can have one remote if you decide to go all Atoll. And so I thought that was pretty unique. And talking about unique, they have something called mode. And this mode I found quite interesting. Now, there's nothing exciting in the first press of the mode button. What that does is mute the system. but when you press it for 2 seconds or longer, it goes into something called balance mode. And when you get into the balance mode, what that does is called the channel balance. So the left and right side, if you have not the most ideal situation in a room, for example, you can't tilt the speakers so you can't get imaging, or you just have a weird door on the left that makes all the sound escape, then you can increase the left channel volume and kind of get that imaging. So you can kind of match the channel balance with that mode. And to do that, you'd use the volume plus or minus to adjust. And so I thought that was pretty unique because, that's a feature that you really want to see in a budget-friendly integrated amplifier like this one, because usually people don't have the most ideal situations. I mean, you don't see it right now, but on my left here, I have a kitchen section right here. This is my living room, and on the left, I have a kitchen going through down there, and the sound escapes. And I have an acoustic panel there, but let's say I didn't, then I can use the channel balance instead of putting up an acoustic panel, which most wife will not approve. And since I'm not married, I can put up an acoustic panel, but for some of you out there, I know the pain, and you can't do that. You can't put an acoustic panel where the kitchen is because they have to walk back and forth, and they don't want to see an acoustic panel hanging down in the random places. Now there's a headphone section, and the headphone section sounds great. It sounds very dynamic, and with any headphone, from planar magnetic headphones to dynamic headphones that I own in my collection, it all sounded pretty great. And especially if one stands out, it was that, it was very dynamic sounding. However, it only has a 3.5mm input, so I really would have liked to see a 1/4 inch in there somewhere, but it's not a big deal. You can use an adapter in any case scenario. And another thing that I really liked about the Atoll in terms of its features is the fact that if you look at the back, that's the actual power switch, and if you look in the front, there's another power switch. So it goes on standby mode when you press this button, and when you press it again, it turns on. And then it goes on standby mode if you press it again. It actually only turns off when you switch the switch on the back of the unit. And what this does is basically it goes in standby mode, and it doesn't need the warm-up time with a lot of tube amplifiers or even other solid states that may require warm-up time for it to sound right. And one thing that the Atolls do better than anything that I've seen in a budget lineup is to think logically and really have the ability to really think about what the consumers are wanting. Because when you switch to standby mode and then you turn it back on, you want to have the same volume settings. You want all your settings, inputs, and volume to be on the same page as you left it. And it does that. So you don't have to increase the volume again to your listening level. It's already there. So whatever setting that you had before, it memorizes that, and then when you switch it back on, it has kept the same settings. Now, if you look in the back is very simple. It's all RCA single-ended inputs. There's no XLR or any of those crazies. So there's that. So enough said, let's talk about the sound quality. So talking about the sound quality of this amplifier or integrated amplifier is very unique to me in one way. And it's the fact that in this price range, I don't really see much dynamic sounding amplifiers. And this Atoll was really surprising to me, and it caught me off guard when I was playing even the Klipsch RP600Ms or the triangles that you see here with such authority on the bottom end. The ability to really have that authority and really that kind of rumble and reach down in the low frequency was very impressive to me, to see the very least. Now, the mid frequency is slightly recessed, and perhaps because it's such a dynamic sound, the mid range seems a little bit recessed, but it's not by much. Now, you have to realize that I come from a lot of tube amplifiers, and I'm a tube amplifier lover. So that mid range, I kind of like it a little bit emphasized. So perhaps this is, pretty normal for a solid state. Now, the high frequency is what's really interesting to me. Now, all the details are there. It's nothing missing. And when I listen to tracks that I listen to for testing over and over again, I don't have any problems with, missing detail or rolled off highs. But even with the Klipsch RP600m or even the triangles, which are horn-loaded designs, I didn't get any brilliance out of it. I didn't get any bright sound out of it. Nothing really pierced through my ears. And perhaps maybe that is due to, the speakers being, not bright sounding, but the Klipsch RP600m was a little bit bright sounding with even some tube amplifiers that I've tested with. In fact, the story goes back where, I was testing multiple amplifiers with the Klipsch RP600m to really get a reference. And I was testing it with a bunch of tube amplifiers ranging from, 500 to, 6,000. And I was also listening to it with multiple solid states. And although I did like the authority of a solid state in the bottom end, it was ever so slightly bright on the top end. And with tube amplifiers, some tube amplifiers were really, really bright. Just was not a good match. And with some tube amplifiers, really, it was a very, very, great experience, just like the audio space that I reviewed recently. But the tube amplifiers had really good mid-range, but not the bottom authority of a solid state. So I was looking for something in between, something that can do both. And although that's not practical, I wasn't looking for, the holy grail. I was looking for something, that had a little bit of, that rolled off frequency, so I wouldn't get that brilliance, and as well as that beautiful mid-range and bottom authority as well. And I landed on Atoll, and Funnel Audio really sent me this, as to match with the Klipsch RP600m, and I think they picked the right product because this one, the high frequency is not bright sounding, and it outputs 50 watts per channel. So the Klipsch or any of the horn-loaded designs don't require that much power because they're sensitive speakers. And with that being said, 50 watts is plenty of power. And really, the top end was not bright, and the bottom authority was there. And the only complaint I would possibly have with sound characteristics is that the mid-range was a little bit more recessed than I would like it. But that's because I'm coming from tube amplifiers, and there's no way you're gonna get a tube mid-range with a solid state, especially in this price range. So I'm really nitpicking here. But the sound characteristics of this IN30 really caught me off by surprise. And aside from that, the Atoll IN30 really caught my attention because it has that features that I was talking about, and also it has a standby mode, so it doesn't have to have that warm-up time like tube amplifiers. And for me personally, I don't have the time to have an amplifier and warm it up for 30 minutes before listening to it. So I think that the Atoll IN30 really hits the spot when you really want the authority on the bottom end like a solid state, but don't want that brilliance that most solid states bring to a horn speaker like the Klipsch RP600m. Then I think this hits the sweet spot. So there you have it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.